As you know, the Iowa caucuses wrapped up on Monday night with almost 110,000 Iowans voicing their preference for the party's nominee for president. Iowa awards delegates based on proportionality. So, of Iowa's 40 possible delegates, Donald Trump, receiving 51% of the votes, was awarded 20 delegates. Ron DeSantis received 8 delegates because he received just over 21% of the votes. Nikki Haley gained 7 delegates because she received about 19% of the votes. And Ramaswamy even got 3 delegates because he obtained over 7% of the votes, though he ultimately dropped out. That means that 40 Iowans will be headed to the RNC this summer, with over half of them nominating Donald Trump for president. Now, Iowa was first in line in this process, but next are the January 23rd primaries in New Hampshire, a state which has a slightly open process of allowing unaffiliated voters to participate in a given party's primary. Again, this means that registered party members cannot vote in the opposing party's primary. Nikki Haley is reportedly exploiting this system to get unaffiliated Democrats to vote for her in the Republican primary. The Federalist's Sean Fleetwood said, "Similarly, in New Hampshire, some operatives are trying to get Democrat-leaning unaffiliated voters to cast their ballots for Haley in the Granite State's semi-closed primary on January 23rd. The tactic reflects a strategy Haley herself bragged about when she told reporters last month, 'If we get independents, if we get conservative Democrats, that's what the Republican Party should pursue. Our goal is to get as many people in the tent as we can.'" Now, New Hampshire also awards delegates on a proportional basis, so I'm not really sure why so many media outlets are acting as if Haley's efforts in New Hampshire would be such a blow to the Trump campaign. Plus, she tried this very tactic in Iowa, and you can see how that turned out.
The most interesting development of the evening, and Anthony Salvanto will find this to be very interesting indeed. They had 50 forms for people who wanted to register tonight or switch their party registration. They ran out of those forms. Members of the caucus team here had to run out to multiple people's homes to get printer paper and get their printers fired up. They printed another 25 or so sheets of paper. They estimate about 75 people were new registrations or switched their registration from Democrat to Republican in order to play in this caucus tonight. And I think that's a big reason why Nikki Haley was lifted up. You're getting a little noise here as they clean up. Was so impressive in this particular outing. If she can repeat that, because we're talking about 20% of the vote here, thereabouts, give or take, were new registrations or crossovers, and that is above the typical rate. You see estimates about 10% in a typical open caucus. So if she can outperform in counties like this one, at caucus sites like this one, then that bodes well for her ability to have a strong second, which of course is what her campaign really wants to drive the narrative into New Hampshire.
Now, I know liberals have a hard time with this sort of thing, but the reporter was speaking from a single polling location in the entire state. So if we apply that percentage rate across the entire state, let's say, this is actually humiliating for the Haley campaign because it demonstrates a large chunk of her votes came from non-affiliated Democrats, which should tell you everything you need to know about Nikki Haley. The point is, the strategy didn't quite work, so I don't think it will in New Hampshire and everywhere else. Now, although Ramaswamy, Hutchison, and Christie have dropped out, I don't think you'll see DeSantis or Haley drop out anytime soon, but if they do, I'd say it won't be until March. Although you have 4 states handing out delegates in February, March is crammed full of primaries and caucuses for both parties. March 5th is known as Super Tuesday, where 16 states will vote for their respective party's nominee. On this single day, 874 delegates are awarded to whoever the candidates are. That's more than a third of the total delegates. Therefore, it's very likely we'll know exactly who the nominee is this early before the actual convention in July, because the rules essentially change in the middle of March when the remaining states have the option of awarding all their delegates to the front runner. In other words, it serves the purpose of either creating a toss-up or quickly identifying the winner, quickly. But let's say that every single state awarded delegates proportionally to the votes. Statistically, Trump wins the exact amount of delegates he needs to become the party's nominee. Now, why don't I think DeSantis and Haley will drop out? I think they're running for second place, not to become some sort of cabinet member or vice president, as I believe Ramaswamy is, but because of the legal path Trump has ahead of him. He's currently dealing with Maine and Colorado attempting to remove him from the primary processes in those states, and maybe add to that Oregon, Arizona, and West Virginia. He has the E. Jean Carroll stuff going on right now, the New York civil fraud trial, election interference cases in New York and Georgia, criminal cases, civil trials, classified documents, etc., etc. So I think Haley and DeSantis have burned their bridges with Trump. They're hoping he gets kneecapped by one of these things, but the man is Teflon Don, and so far, nothing has stopped him. I think that Trump will now absorb Ramaswamy's votes, especially after his endorsement. I also think support will now dwindle for DeSantis and Haley, given their performance in this first caucus. Another reason I feel this is Trump's race is the turnout in Iowa. Yes, Iowa's caucus processes and just caucuses in general are more difficult to participate in than a simple primary ballot process. But only about 100,000 Iowan voters out of almost 2 million showed up to vote. And that's because I think most of them know what I know, that this is Trump's race. One of the best ways you can help our show, other than by sharing the content, is by picking up some We the Free merch at wethefreeshow.com. You can be the salt and light you were meant to be by wearing the Salt and Light shirt, or by sipping your coffee from the Salt and Light mug. Or you can sport the God Bless America shirt and, of course, the classic We the Free crest tee. We've even got stickers and a Smells Like Freedom candle, that's right. So check out our new merch at wethefreeshow.com.